And welcome to my TEDx talk. Today I will be going over 5 top guiding points for new teachers just starting out, things that will help you maintain your classroom environment in a way that benefits both you and the students. So here we will get started with the presentation. Thank you for coming. All right, first up. So being the best teacher you can be, especially in your first year, really comes from the tools that you have in place and utilize throughout the year. When I first started teaching, I had no idea what to expect when I walked into my classroom, and every day is something new. So you will get used to it very quickly, but this is just 5 tips to help you get started and things you should be doing anyway to be a good teacher. So in your first year, it might not be your best, but every year after that can definitely be better. Just focus on what works and stop doing what doesn't work. Here are the goals for this presentation. 1, you will learn how to use background information about students to foster positive interactions with their parents and the larger school community. 2, you will implement strategies, procedures, and norms that establish positive supports for classroom work and discourse, foster social emotional development, also called SEL, and promote individual responsibility for student learning. 3, you will design standards-based lessons with clear learning goals for students that engage all the learners in your class and assess their progress as you go. 4, design lessons that simultaneously build content knowledge and support academic language acquisition for all students. And finally, 5, reflect upon your own teaching and that of your colleagues to increase your understanding of the complexity of instruction. So let's take a look at goal number 1. Using background information on your students to foster positive interactions with them, their parents, and the larger school community. So one thing to keep in mind as soon as you step foot in your classroom at any given time, that we are all humans. We all want some basic things, such as to be connected with, to be recognized, to be acknowledged, and to be accepted. You can help your students feel that way by just getting to know them. At the beginning of the class or periodically throughout the year, you can give them surveys and get to know them. You can give them warm-ups or exit tickets that have nothing to do with the content sometimes. Sometimes it can just be a check-in on how they're doing and questions about their personal lives. What are their skills? What are their interests? Ask them questions. They will get to know you and your interest in them, and they will appreciate that. One thing I like to do, and one practical thing that you can do, is create a classroom culture collage. So right here, you can see this is my very own classroom. Each class has a culture collage. At the beginning of the year, I ask them to bring something from their culture, something that represents them. And as they go and put it up on the board, they are able to introduce their culture to the classroom. Moving forward, number 2, implement strategies that establish positive classroom cultures focused on social emotional learning, development, and promoting individual responsibility for student learning. Students are partners in learning. We teach them, but they also have a big role in this. They need to be receptive to learning. Studies show that students and anyone in general is not receptive to learning when they feel unsafe in their environment. You can only learn when you feel safe. So at the beginning of the year, I like to let my class know that my only number 1 rule is respect. Respect for ourselves, respect for others, and respect for materials. Everyone's box can be checked off of things that they want to have in their environment to feel safe. If you open this up as a classroom discussion and ask them, take notes from them and add it to your own classroom norms document and have it posted throughout the year. If there's ever a case where an individual in that class is not adhering to the norms, stop everyone and remind everyone what norms that were set and agreed upon at the beginning of the year. You can also check in with your students and never start class without gauging the room, reading the room, seeing what the energy levels are, how your students are doing. From that, you can gain information to tailor your approach for that lesson for the day. Social emotional learning is really important because it allows students to accept responsibility for their own behavior, but also acknowledges that humans are very emotional creatures and we need to fully acknowledge our emotions in order to be our best productive selves. From castle.org, there are 5 pillars of social emotional learning. I printed out these posters that I made myself. I have my students write how they can use these 5 pillars in their own daily lives at the beginning of the year. The 5 pillars are self-awareness. It's how we think about ourselves and who we are. It includes understanding our own culture, our thoughts, our feelings, what we're capable of, and also understanding how these things affect others. Self-management is all about managing our own emotions, our thoughts and actions as we work towards the goals that we set for ourselves. So this includes coping with stress and anxiety and other roadblocks along the way to our success, and persevering through challenges. It also helps us learn how to develop the ability to change our own lives for the better without relying on anyone else. Number 3, relationship skills are how we get along with others and form lasting connections. This includes communicating clearly, solving problems together, managing conflicts, and standing up for ourselves and others. Responsible decision-making is how we make positive and informed choices. This includes thinking about the consequences of our actions, being curious and open-minded to new information, and identifying solutions that benefit us and the community. And finally, social awareness is how we learn to take different perspectives, have empathy for people who are different from us, and help us relate to the people in our environment, reading the social situations, understanding the social situations, and how those situations can influence us and either create or destroy our own sense of belonging in that environment. Number 3, you always need to be designing standards-based lessons that come directly from whatever standard guidelines you are expected to follow in your state or district. And also you want to assess your learners along the way. You never want to just give them a test after teaching them and expect them all to get an A. There should be self-assessments, informal assessments, pre-assessments, and finally, the final summative assessment at the end of this. So some districts have a pacing guide. You can always ask your department head where you should be at, have access to this pacing guide that shows you where you should be at step by step. Some districts have shared resources among teachers, so check and see what resources you have available. But you always want to be following a set guideline. Number 4, the lessons that you design should allow students to gain content knowledge, but also support academic language acquisition for all students. For example, at the start of your lesson, you can 1, remind and refresh what they learned in the previous lesson. Number 2, you will introduce the new topic and front load them on any vocabulary or topics they need to know. 3, you can begin your lesson. This helps English learners read and write and speak fluently in the language of the target. Knowledge is buildable. You always want to remind your students what you learned in the previous class, what you will learn in this class, and what you will learn next time as well. This allows students to always be able to orient themselves in time and space and know what to expect and know where they were, where they are, and where they're going in your class. And finally, number 5, the more you reflect, the more you learn. It's important to notice, to take a look at yourself in the mirror and say, today was a good day. Write down all of the things that made it a good day, that made it successful, and keep doing it. If your day was not so great and you failed in some way, or something did not go the way that you wanted to, make sure it doesn't happen again by writing down the conditions that led to that and not replicating this ever again. So you can take all of these ideas, and use them in your own classroom. You can also share with your colleagues anything you've learned, or you can create fresh ideas and never stop learning how to be a great teacher. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.